Welcome to The Growth Show with Matt Lindsay, where we discuss growth strategies both for business and a personal perspective, discussing all kinds of businesses, growth strategies, technology, investment strategy, and much more. We are meeting with entrepreneurs, investors, app developers, and property developers. Our vision is to help 10,000 business owners grow their businesses. Introducing our host, Matt Lindsay. Matt is a former banker and corporate financier. He now spends his time building his own companies organically and through acquisition, as well as raising capital for other businesses. Matt works with a wide variety of entrepreneurs and investors.
Welcome, Mr. Matt Baker, to The Growth Show with Matt Lindsay. The two Matts together once again.
Indeed. Pleasure to be here.
Thanks for coming on. So, we were just talking offline. We haven't seen each other in flesh for nearly a year, which is quite incredible.
I know. It's been... When was the last time you were in our group? Was it February last year?
Well, that was the last group. It must have been.
It must have been the last group because March didn't happen. So yeah, it's been now almost a year since we've seen each other in the flesh.
So we're talking at tangents and nobody's going to know what we're talking about. So Matt Baker runs a platform for HMO investors, being a HMO investor himself. And I used to attend and have continued to attend throughout lockdown, actually, providing some guidance in terms of financial side of things and debt and equity, etc. So what is that and what does it do for those that don't know?
Well, the HMO Platform is a coaching and mastermind program where we work with landlords, investors and developers who are specialising in HMOs and co-living developments. And so the types of people we work with are those who maybe have been operating property for a little while and they've got a few properties and they're wanting to level up their portfolio, looking at kind of what we call next level HMOs, which are it's kind of the way we've coined a product in the HMO market which is different to the rest. So it's creating a unique offering that has a better level of service and essentially brings co-living to the HMO world, because there's essentially this bit of a confusion between what makes an HMO, what makes co-living, and so we're hoping to, we are dispelling that myth that they're the same thing, or that co-living is just a buzzword for HMO when it's not. Co-living is where you have HMOs and you then create an amazing level of service within it. So yeah, what we do is have those programs that look at finding them, developing them, filling them, and creating an amazing experience for the customers.
Okay, so for those who don't know what a HMO is, it's a house of multiple occupation or occupancy, where basically multiple people live together. And I guess in these times, I know I saw some statistics that you were quoting on your feed of Instagram yesterday or the day before regarding how actually people probably would prefer to be living in a co-living environment at the moment rather than living in a flat by oneself. So yeah, it's an interesting outlook and view of things.
Yeah, definitely. If you think over the last year, people have been locked down in the UK, essentially with a few respites here and there, to depending on where you are in the country. But if you're living by yourself in a 1-bedroom or 2-bed flat, or even in a couple, that it can be very claustrophobic, very very lonesome. So there's this want for human connection and building relationships with others outside of the Zoom room. So what we're seeing is that people are wanting to move into shared accommodation, but with quality. So those that are in shared accommodation are being more discerning about the types of properties that they're wanting to live in, and those who are moving from a 1-bed flat are going to want to see that they're getting more for their money. They'll generally be getting a better deal than what they were paying before, because you will include all of your services, etc. So it can actually be an affordable option. Let's say we have a bit of a downturn. Well, we've had a turbulent up and down over the last year, with some people losing jobs. There's going to be a bit of economic turmoil over the coming months. So um, shared housing is an affordable option, and we are at the really good quality space design and service that we provide as developers ourselves, but also that's what we teach others to do.
Interesting. So I guess what you've done is basically applied the principles that you've applied to your own developments first, and then taken those and basically retraining those to other people. I know from our previous conversations and chats, face to face back in the day. That's like that
Yes.
kind of old in the old times.
Over a pint, which we used to be able to do.
Yeah, well, I don't drink anymore either, so we wouldn't be able to do that anymore.
The
So
world has
I
changed.
know, yeah, it's like there was a cataclysmic shift, but the
Although,
yeah,
although I am in dry January, I'm a few weeks now into not having a drink, and I'm not missing it. I've had no TV, no um, beer either, so no alcohol, no TV. So I'm doing quite well. A bit of
well,
time.
I'm 8 months in now, 9 months in, so yeah, it's kind of a long, yeah, just the new norm. You wake up every day and there's no hangover. This is
Like
the
most
new
people.
world. Yeah, like most. Well, is it though? In lockdown, I think alcohol consumption has gone through the roof, but that's
Yeah.
that's a different conversation. So, yeah, obviously, we've known each other for a few years, and I thought, with the kind of economy in the way that it is, obviously yourself and your business partner Niall, I've been really impressed with the way that you've continued to grow and you've continued to kind of expand what you do. But if we kind of take a step back and rewind to the beginning of things, so by trade you were a musician, and and you've kind of pivoted quite yeah, it's quite a big pivot to become a property investor, and then beginning to train people and the other things that you're going on. So yeah, if you could just for those that don't know you, tell us a little bit about your background, how you've kind of come to do what you're doing today, and yeah, some of the spoils and stories that you've had along that journey. That'd be great.
So as you're right, I started life as a musician, and all through my kind of teenage years, I'm a piano player. So I'm actually a piano player and property investor. That's a moniker that I sometimes put out there. So I was a pianist all the way through my teens, and then I went and studied music, and then throughout my 20s became a session musician, and I worked quite a lot with bands and artists, doing tours and ranging from doing the gig down the local pub to being flown first class to Istanbul and back in 24 hours. It was quite a really good fun time. Um, but as um, with anything where you're a freelance, and especially in the creative industries, income is very up and down. It's a bit like a roller coaster. And there was one moment where I saw the guitarist who was playing in one of the bands that I was in, and he was in he just turned 40 actually. He was in his early 40s, and he was still working as a waiter to pay the rent, as he had hair down to here and was gigging, and he was a great guy. Um, but I was like, oh my goodness, I want a family. I've got aspirations of what I want to do in life. Um, I don't really want to be hanging around for 20, 30 years, waiting for that opportunity where someone else is going to come in and I don't know, sign a band that I'm in, or to give me that world tour with a world famous artist, which is essentially what you'd be doing, looking for that one opportunity. So
Mm.
I decided to take a bit more control, and found that a great steady income was through teaching,
Right.
and I was actually quite good at it, and developed my kind of my own business, teaching piano from home and going to other people's houses, and I got to a place where I was full, couldn't take on any more students, and a friend of mine said, well, I've got this other friend of mine who's looking for some piano teaching work. Do you think you might be able to help her out? And I thought, well, actually, well, yes, I probably could. I've got this list of people. I've got all these inquiries, and I've got some students that I really don't enjoy teaching, others I absolutely love teaching. I was like, well, if there's some way of being able to pick and choose my students and actually then work with someone else who can teach them my waiting list, then that's going to be really good. And that was the formation of my music school in South Oxfordshire, the Tame Institute of Music, which I sold about 2 or 3 years ago now.
Okay.
Uh,
So you've had a business exit at this point.
I have had a business exit. I wouldn't say it was one where you go on around the world for 2 years celebrating, but it was a business and it was an exit. Um, and I learned a lot about valuing business. Didn't have a clue. I learned a lot about um, what it means to have value in business at the time, and I didn't tick quite a lot of the boxes that I needed to have to exit a business correctly. I just wanted out because it was causing me hassle.
Yeah.
Um, so I've now, if I was to exit again, I know that I would need to have quite a few different things in place to increase the value of that business and get a more of a multiplier valuation.
Mm.
So that was really interesting. But yeah, up to that point, music was my thing, and it was when I turned 30 that I discovered property investing. And I went to an event about business and growth and mindset, and there were all sorts of speakers talking about property, business, um, mindset, and just repeating myself. But yeah, so it was really interesting, and I was trying to grow my music school business at the time. And when there was a lady, Jill Fielding, up on stage and started talking about property investing and how you could do it with little time, little money, and I was like, well, property is something I've always been interested in. It's always something I knew I obviously wanted to buy my own home. I was thinking I had to save up for that, but it's going to take me ages. I was self-employed, so getting a mortgage was going to be really difficult. So when she started talking about buy-to-let investing, I thought, well, yeah, I could do that. Actually, I could do that before I thought I was going to make my millions as a musician, and then I was going to invest it in property. And what this did was it turned it on its head. I think I could make wealth within property, and which gives me the freedom to invest in my own musical kind of adventure, doing the music that I want to do without the pressures of the having to make the money from it.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. And so you've obviously continued on that journey and built up a portfolio of assets today. So what does that kind of look and feel like in terms of quantity? And where do you how far do you want to go with that going forwards as well? That's always a follow on question.
Well, just before I get there, one thing that I like to explain why I love shared living and HMOs,
Okay. Yeah.
because um, as a musician, what I've always loved was working in bands, because being a pianist, it's a very lonely instrument, unless because the opportunities to work in ensembles is quite low, and most pianists they just sit and play for themselves. So it was only when I started working with others I really enjoyed myself and started to become very passionate about it. And I really enjoyed putting other people together as well. So I would be someone who would connect other musicians and say, oh, this person would really be great, and bring artists and bands together. So that created a community spirit. And when I got into property, when I discovered what an HMO was as a house of multiple occupation, how people could live together, I thought, well, actually, yeah, this is a great thing because people can live in a community, they can get on, they can have a really great experience living in those houses. So
Mm.
it was that extension of that community into property,
Yeah.
which also follows through into the training as well, because I love building community of people that are all doing the same thing.
Yeah.
So that's why I do HMOs. And when I started out, I always knew that I wanted to get into that really quickly.
Mm.
So in terms of investing, we've been investing now for, I did that training about almost 6 years ago,
Okay.
and I've been investing for just over 5 years. Just had the fifth anniversary of being a buy-to-let investor on the 18th of December last year, and and
Was it a day of celebrations or commiserations?
it was no, it's a day of celebration because that
Good.
property has increased quite a lot in value now.
Mm.
So we bought it for 105, and that is now worth about 160 in
Okay.
5 years. So very happy with that growth. And we're just trying to refinance that at the moment. It's just very slow, as we know, with banks.
Mm.
But moving into HMOs, we did pretty much straight away. So I actually bought that house and my first HMO. We had the offer agreed on the same day, in about August, September time in 2015. Bought one on the 18th of December, and then the HMO one we bought on the 31st of March, just as stamp duty was being increased. We were
Right.
part of that cohort where we said to our solicitor, "You must complete on the 31st of March, otherwise you're paying my stamp duty for me." Um, so there's going to be a few more of those this year, I think, as
I
well.
think so. Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's see what happens in the budget, but yeah, it looks like it, doesn't it?
Exactly. But anyway, to answer your question, we're now at about 100 units over 5 years, and that is growing. We've got about 20 in the pipeline today. So 20 agreed more today, 20 more units, and then we've got about another 50 in the pipeline. And our goals at the moment is to grow and to add another 750 units to the portfolio over the next 5 years. So we've just come up with a 5-year growth plan, um, and we are building the pipeline, and then speaking to investors about really getting involved in that journey. So looking for people that can support our growth over the next 5 years and be party to it.
Wow. Okay. And I think to put it into context, I think historically probably shared living was it's probably a bit had a bit of a derogatory connotation attached to it in terms of the quality of the product probably wasn't very nice, and yeah, a bit substandard, and probably aimed generally at the really lower end of the market. And I think having seen some of the product that you produced, albeit not in person, but by the glossy means of Instagram, so you see everything in its finest. I think it's probably fair to say the quality of what the quality of the product is right up there, isn't it, in terms of the standards?
Yeah, I'd like to think so. And we've got an amazing team, amazing design team that work on it. We've been evolving our product for the last probably 3.5 years. And when I present, I show the evolution of the HMO through from the beige box that I call it, of you just that rinse and repeat model where you just carve houses up and paint everything white or grey feature wall or beige magnolia walls. That just doesn't cut it anymore. That's in the middle of the market, which is highly commoditized. You're always going to be fighting on price. It's a massive price war. Um, so where we position ourselves with those next level HMOs that I referred to earlier is within the top 5% of the marketplace.
Mm.
And like any business, if you're in the top 5% of the market, then you are you're always going to have customers, and what will happen is you'll be able to charge a premium.
Mm.
A great example is if you go back in time to 1998, you have the evolution of the personal computer. So before 1998, you've got IBM, you've got Dell, you've got Hewlett Packard. They're all um, creating what are revolutionary machines.
Yep.
Um, Dated now in our eyes today, but revolutionary machines where you've got all these other bits plugged into it, but they're very beige, and they all do the same thing. So they were getting cheaper and cheaper and cheaper in the marketplace. And then
Yep.
in 1998, out comes Steve Jobs with the iMac G3,
Yep.
which was the first of the fancy looking uh, you know Macs, which are no longer called personal computers. They've got their own name. They're branded. They're beautiful. They're colorful. Everything's in the box. You don't need to buy loads and loads of add-ons. And the price of that is extortionate compared to your PC.
Mm.
So we view the same with the evolution of the HMO, is that the next level HMOs and co-living are this new breed of product which stands out in the marketplace, which um, commands a premium price, and therefore commands a premium profit to the investor, but also a much better customer experience for the tenant. So when we design them, we have that tenant in mind at all times, and we call it our tenant first method, so that we say that the profit comes when the customer's happy.
Yep. Yeah, and obviously with that number of tenants that you're running, it clearly is resonating and striking a chord with the with the tenants when they're coming through.
Definitely, our average tenancy lengths are, well over a year. If people think that shared housing is for short terms, but
Mm.
actually it's becoming a lot longer. Our longest tenant had been with us 3.5 years before he moved out, just before Christmas. So yeah, that goes to say a lot about the types of offering that we create.
And what do you know what the average age of tenant is as well? That's always an interesting metric.
Oh, that's a very good question. I'm going to be stabbing a little bit in the dark. I don't know, but if I was to quickly mentally picture all of our tenants, not that I know them all, but uh, I would say our average age is probably in the that probably 26, 27.
Okay.
Yeah, the mid range of that 21 to 35 range
Yeah.
of which we look for.
And I'm assuming that by doing the properties to a higher standard, that probably reduces the damage to the properties in terms of you're getting because you're charging a premium, you're hopefully getting a better quality tenant. So therefore there's less parties and less damage.
Yes, damage is not really something that we need to worry about. We've
Mm,
never really had any major issues with damage. There's
mm,
only one property where we have issues, and that's one of our very first ones where it's done differently. It's not a next level HMO. It's you've got shared bathrooms, a smaller kitchen, and done in the old way, like that the cookie cutter way, which um, that was something that we are reviewing, but in that particular property, there are more issues.
right.
So we will be looking to turn that around into the way that we do it today over the last 3 years. But
Mm,
yeah, we see the difference in there being very few issues with the tenants in our properties that we have that approach to. Um, so yeah, I could definitely say that they attract a better and high value tenant.
yeah. Okay. Interesting. And in terms of how you've built this portfolio, so it's a fair old crack, number of units that you've built during that period of time. Um, how have you done that? So is that using own money, investors' money? What's the process?
Okay, so when I started, I didn't have a huge swathe of capital.
Mm,
In fact, I had debts on credit cards, and it was something that that was one of the reasons why property seemed like a really attractive thing because it's like that's a source of capital, source of income, and I um, started having conversations with family. So my first investors were my parents.
mm,
So we worked together on a few projects. They had some money from a pension and kind of wasn't pension release, it was kind of pension lump sum, and therefore we invested that in a few properties, and then that ran out of money, so I started talking to other members of family, raised some more money there, and then it grew. That network grew beyond the family to friends and eventually to sophisticated investors, and we raise money generally for every single deal that we do. Um, and then we create equity within the properties and then turn funds around through refinance, and then now we um, aim to sell projects as well to release equity and profit. So we
right.
have this ecosystem of working with our own cash capital and investors. Yeah.
Okay, and one of the things, having attended some of your events, one of the things that I think you guys do really well is obviously the kind of the pitch documents that you provide to potential investors. It's it immediately kind of gives that confidence that you're working with somebody that is prepared to invest in bit of time in kind of making the pitch document that's good. To me, that's something that's is always important rather than a kind of dog-eared piece of paper.
Yeah.
There's something that's nice, a bit of thought that's gone into that as well. And do you think that helps your conversion rate?
Yeah, massively. There's a network of investors that we're a part of, and when we joined that network, the guy that runs it asked us for some information that he could share with the people in the network, and we sent him our pitch deck, our um, about Scott Baker Properties and what we do, and he said it was one of the well, he was very, very impressed by it. He said he never really gets anything of that quality and standard. And
Mm.
this is a network of, multimillionaires and billionaires. I was saying, really? I couldn't believe that what we produced was anything that would be better than what I would have assumed would be produced by high caliber businesses looking to raise finance.
Mm.
So, yeah, the quality of the pack is important, but it must also include quality information, because you can make something really well, lack of information look really, really good as well. Just lots
Yeah.
of pictures. So we like to include lots of imagery, lots of kind of well, obviously numbers, detail, what you're investing in, who we are, what our values are, and we're very much about wanting to work with people who align with our values
Yeah.
and mission. Yeah,
So a bit of substance below the style as well.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And obviously, so you've built up this portfolio, and then you've bolted on this kind of training program alongside that. So how did you go about that transition, and what was the kind of thought process in launching the HMO platform?
So I've always enjoyed teaching.
Mm.
When I was a piano player, what I always found was that through teaching, it would challenge my own abilities and challenge my own thinking about what I was doing.
Mm.
So that if someone was working, like one of my students was working on a piece of music, and it was a piece of music which was maybe challenging, well, not challenging for me, but I'd have to work on it to get it to a standard where I'd be happy.
Mm.
Their challenge. I have to think about how I'm going to present it, how I'm going to um, look at that piece of music to teach it and make it understandable, and the fingering and everything that you would do. Similarly, when we were doing property, I had got busy, and in the training course that I did with Jill Fielding back in the day, um, they said, well, would you share your story about how you got going and your first few deals, and to try and inspire some others in their journeys? And I put together a presentation, and it went quite well. And so one thing led to another, and I ended up presenting quite a bit of that material on their trainings.
Right. Okay.
And so that's how I kind of got into it on the property side. But it then became quite natural that I'd want to share the knowledge, and I really like the more kind of advanced strategies that you can do with HMOs and co-living through leveraging planning permissions, commercial valuations, mixed use schemes, the stuff where it's not always the same. Because if you take a
Mm.
3-bed house, turn it into a 6-bed HMO, you can, or 5-bed HMO, you can rinse and repeat that, but it's not particularly sexy. It is it, it becomes a bit mundane.
Mm.
So even though you can create some great properties that way, I much prefer to challenge myself, look at a scheme and go, what can we get out of this?
Yeah.
Um, and therefore, when working with others, that also challenges me by other people bringing things to the table. We're showing them the what to do, what not to do, but also how we can help them to maximize their capital by creative finance, by working with experts like yourself, but also how we can um, ensure that they're getting the most out of their projects, their schemes, by working with planning experts and architects. And I just love looking at a floor plan and going, right, bedroom, 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 bedroom,
Yeah.
um, okay, cinema room, kitchen, living space. Yeah,
That, I mean, actually, that's one of the things that I, having attended a few of your kind of cohorts days, that's one of the things that I quite enjoyed, was that process of the potential of these things. Because yeah, as you know, I find some of my own sites and do some of that stuff as well. And yeah, it's kind of being able to kind of implement and visualize it is, some people just can't do it, can they? And others are very good at it. So yeah, it's quite an interesting process.
yeah, we get very excited when someone turns up with a very interesting floor plan, and you stick it up on the big screen, and we start going, oh, okay, right. So we've got this, this, and this, and we like, how much floor space is there? Right, how many bedrooms? We should be able to get 9 bedrooms out of this. Right, where can we get 9 bedrooms out of this?
Yeah.
Okay, like, does the building work for that? There's definitely the space, and then work backwards, and then that way we can as I say, go back and work out GDVs, values, and then say, right, go put your offers in, get deals done. Yeah, absolutely love it.
Yeah, and I think that that kind of process is made a lot easier with all the technology that's available. And I know that you work closely with Nimbus Maps,
Yep.
as I have done for quite a few years now. Actually, I've been a subscriber of theirs, using their technology, and I think they're constantly evolving it, in terms of adding new features, and I know that they've had a focus on the HMO market. And I think you did a webinar with Paul yesterday, Paul Davis from Nimbus yesterday.
Yeah, I did indeed. They've just launched a couple of new strategies about simplifying HMO sourcing,
Hmm.
and we did a joint webinar to talk about the HMO strategy, and why it's a good one to invest in, and then how Nimbus can help. So
Hmm.
yeah, we include Nimbus and the HMO strategies in all of our training. So when someone works with us, they get access to that. So as a tool, as a research tool, as a analytical tool, and as a sourcing tool, I think it's really good.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. Okay, and in terms of, for somebody who's coming into real estate, they've got no, maybe limited or no experience. What's your kind of, obviously the market is, it's been last year, property prices rose on average according to statistics. I'm not so sure how many sales there were compared to kind of
Mhm.
a normal time. I think numbers were probably down, but I haven't seen figures on that. What's your kind of outlook for the next 12 months? And if you were starting now, what would you be looking for?
That's a really good question. Yeah, the market is, for all intents and purposes, booming. Like house prices are up massively. Like I think we hit the highest average house price in the last 12 months we've had in quite a while, well, ever. So that, well, with every kind of boom, there comes a bit of a, I'm not going to say bust, because I don't think bust is the right word.
Correction.
Correction, exactly. So yeah, I'd say there's uncertainty around the end of the stamp duty holiday. Obviously, the housing market's been propped up by the government by having this stamp duty reduction. There's an opportunity here,
Mm.
and the reason there's an opportunity is because house prices, I believe, my gut kind of says that there's going to be a bit of a lull, and that it will recover quite quickly over the next 12 months.
Mm.
Um, there'll be a lull, but banks still want to lend.
Yeah.
So you've got access to finance because there's so much money out there, and you've got cheaper house prices.
Yeah.
So that, I think, is a really great opportunity for anybody who's an investor to get started. And if people think about, if people think, right, there's loads of investors out there in the marketplace, you have to still remember that investors take up are the minority by quite a long way still in the UK property market. It's
Mm.
massively dominated by your homeowners.
Well, and I think lots of investors have, since the kind of introduction of not being able to offset interest against your, personal tax bill as well. I think lots of investors have there's been lots that have retired. I think it
Yeah.
was the biggest landlord in the UK retired, didn't he? And he had a huge portfolio. So I think there's been a bit of a shake up. But yeah, I agree with you. I think it's the reality is that who knows how long COVID's going to go on for, right? That's the kind of great unknown. But obviously, once it settles down and normality returns to the market, then the odds are we've done our Brexit deal and we should be going into something that's a positive outlook, so potentially a booming economy, which obviously house prices normally are a kind of bellwether for that. So, but yeah, so in terms of somebody entering in now, what kind of strategies would you be looking at if that was in you in their shoes?
As a strategy, someone who's never had any property experience,
Mm.
keep it simple.
Yeah,
So the stuff that I've been talking about to this point, I'd say it might sound exciting. Just park it for a moment and take a very simple first step, which is probably buying a simple house or flat and then renting it to a family or a
yeah,
couple. Like that, because there's in property, there's quite a lot of things to learn along the way. And do you realistically want to learn 10 things in one deal and get maybe 7 of them wrong? Or would you prefer to maybe learn 3 or 4 things in your first deal? You maybe make the odd mistake, but it's a cheap mistake because you made that because um, you're doing something simple. So
mm.
especially when you're doing refurbishments, working with builders, that there's a lot of things that, unless you're in the property trades or done it before, that you're going to come across that you've not encountered before. So,
Mm.
and you can learn about it, you can read about it, but there's nothing like actually going through the process of doing it.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I agree.
So I'd say keep it simple, um, de-risk it, use finance, so use mortgages to leverage your money. And there might be people listening who still think that who will think that buying in cash is the best way to do it. It's not, because your returns will be a lot higher. That's a conversation for another day. But essentially, you'll be able to leverage and get more out of a property and be able to buy more of them. Um, and I think that's a really great way of spreading risk. I'd much prefer to have 10 properties with 10 mortgages rather than have one property for cash.
Yeah.
For obvious reasons to me, it's because you've got 10 tenants. You've got if one stops paying, then you've got another 9 to keep you going. Whereas if your one stops paying, you've only got one. That's a huge problem for you.
Although the adverse effect of using finance is magnified if there's losses, there's bigger losses. But that's
Yeah,
it's only at the point of realization, right? So if you go into negative equity, I know lots of people that have assets that are in negative equity, and you just have to sit there and trade them out, and just
yeah,
sit there and wait until the market comes back. So I think the most important thing in my experience is buy well, get good deals on things, and I think that there's always a kind of that kind of urgency to do a transaction, and it's doing the right transactions at the right money, as opposed to, it's better to do the right transaction than it is just to do one.
yeah. I'd caveat that the 10 houses would be 10 good houses, or
Yes, of course.
or out of 10 houses, you might have, 4 amazing ones, 4 average ones, and maybe 2, maybe one which is all right, and then one which is causing you lots of hassle. So, because in any business, you're going to have, a range of stuff. And I'll tell you, in our portfolio, there's never a day where 100% of the portfolio is we've got no issues. There's always an issue within the portfolio that needs resolving, and that issue migrates around the portfolio. So it's never the same. It's never the same one on the same day.
And I guess part of that kind of scaling up process is having the kind of capability and the infrastructure to deal with those problems and those issues as they arise.
Yeah.
And as you get more experienced, you get more confident in kind of dealing with those things. So do you have a kind of specific approach in terms of systems and processes and things like that, or what how do you deal with that stuff?
Well, that's a bit of learning as well, because
Yeah.
we started in property, but no one told us how to run a business. And the only business I'd run before was a music school, which is quite simple. So we've had to learn our way and feel our way through it.
Mm.
We've leveraged the expertise of others very much the entire way. So whether that's the expertise of finance brokers, of mortgage, mortgage brokers, um, project managers, builders, lettings agents, all the people that you need to run a successful business, you outsource those parts. So, and generally, you want to be doing the things that you're good at that only you can do.
Mm.
And that has been a journey of self-discovery about about our personalities, who does what. So, I do certain things in the business, Niall does other things in the business, whereas before we used to butt heads and both try and do the same stuff. And occasionally we fall into that old habit, and we have to remind ourselves, actually, no, that's Niall's wheels house. Matt, get out of it. and, which is normally the way it works. And me trying to put my nose in and find out what's going on. But good systems are, regular meetings, and trusting that the people in your team know what they're doing. And
Mm.
sometimes, and you don't just necessarily trust people overnight, but you learn over time. And then over time, you will learn whether they are right for your business, whether they're wrong. So, for example, a letting agent, we've changed letting agents quite a few times in a few different areas, because we'll work with someone for a year, 2 years, and then we can just see that it's just not quite working as well as it could do. So then we would change and find someone else. And we're happy with maybe 70% of our agents at the moment. So still
Yeah.
not 100% happy, which is a reason for something else that we've done throughout lockdown, which I think we'll come to a bit later.
Yeah.
But essentially, systems are all about people, really,
Mm.
and managing people. and then having good technology and tools which those people can use to manage. So regular meetings, um, good quality information.
Yeah.
We, for example, as a team, we have a Monday morning meeting briefing and then a Friday afternoon debriefing. So we have about 10 members of the team that come into that meeting at the moment. And so so on the Monday, we talk about, um, what are we aware of in the business that we need to work on, what's our main goal and focus for the week. And on the Friday, we'll catch up and we'll say, like, what was our biggest win? What's something that we need learning or help with?
Yeah.
And it's really interesting because the wins are generally things that they've achieved or that the business has done that week, and the learnings are almost always about, well, I had to learn how to manage my diary better, or it's all been personal development stuff. It
Mm.
wasn't, I didn't know how to use an email. It was more about learning something about themselves. So those regular touch points really help with personal growth.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
Um,
interesting.
yeah,
Yeah, it's important stuff, isn't it? Kind of keeping the focus, and yeah, but at the same time being able to kind of take a step back and have that kind of 30,000 foot view of the bigger picture in terms of, where you are today and where you want to get to. And I think, yeah, my experience is you've got to implement the systems and the process of a much bigger company than you probably are at that point in time. And obviously, as you grow, you need to continue to do that. And quite often, where people get stuck is, they're kind of doing everything themselves. And the difficulty is, as we both know, is letting go of stuff. It's a difficult thing to do. It's harder than you think,
it
because
really is.
you think, oh, I can do it better than they can anyway. So what's the point, And but actually, by doing that, you're stopping yourself.
Yeah,
And a huge part of my kind of personal journey, I think this is the same for you as well, is kind of, this is designing one's life in the way that the way that you want it. So you're actually spending your time doing the stuff that you enjoy doing, as opposed to the alternative of being told what to do by somebody else. And I think
yeah.
for me that's almost as important as the actual the rewards from it all. And I don't know, is that the same for yourself?
Yeah, because it's all about the journey. If you don't enjoy
Yeah.
the journey, there's no point going.
Yeah.
Um, it's similar to being an athlete. The goal is to win a gold medal at the Olympics, but
Mm.
actually, the your life is the journey. It's
Mm.
getting there, and that's just one day on in one particular hour of your life. So I think what I find is that looking or piecing together that picture of how you want your life to be, it is about making sure that you're generally correct in the direction that you're going,
Mm.
um, that you're focused in the right way, but that you've got the people around you who can um, share that burden, share that load,
Yeah.
and inspirational people that you like to be around.
Yeah.
And so
Absolutely.
so you're designing your life. You choose the people you want to be around. And as you say about letting go of things, I've had to let go of a lot to be able to do what we're doing.
Mm.
And I always used to think, and still do think sometimes, I can do things better than others.
Yeah.
But you need to let go. And I've had to let other people make the mistakes I could see they were going to make. I
Yeah.
can guide them, but they've got to make those mistakes so that they've learnt that mistake so they don't do it again.
Yeah.
Um, so um, yeah, so that has been a big lesson. But as long as you're going the right direction, you'll get there.
Or further than you are today.
Or first, well, exactly.
You might not get there, I'm not.
Yeah,
I'm not going to beat Usain Bolt. He's retired now, but these things have to be realistic, in line with your personal capabilities. And I've got, and actually, it's knowing what your weaknesses are as well, isn't it? I think that's a huge part of these kind of journeys, is to make sure that you're not doing the things that you shouldn't be doing, because frankly, you're going to mess them up if if you do them.
yeah. No, they say that's true. Actually, when people set up businesses, entrepreneurs are not necessarily business owners or business managers.
Yeah.
They're good at something that is needed,
Yeah.
um, and then you just need to bring in the right people that can manage a business.
Yeah, well, I watched a podcast about the Gymshark founder,
Yeah,
the gymwear brand, and there were originally two founders, and one of them sold out his shares, 20% of it for 100 million quid.
Yep.
And he said, that's plenty enough money for me. I like doing startups. I don't want to be involved in a big corporate. And now, he's obviously gone on and, investing in property and all kinds of stuff. And the founder's still there, and he's grown it to, a billion dollar valuation or whatever it is. So you can kind of see, and I think, it's knowing which side of the coin are you. And I think you have to kind of get to a certain place with yourself to kind of recognize, actually, that's my skill set and that's not. And you kind of it hurts sometimes, doesn't it, to kind of actually, I'm not good at this bit, and I need some help.
Well, you know what? I could probably resonate with that, because as you were talking, I was thinking, right, so let's say we've got a business that we've started and we take it to a certain value. Do I want to be part of a big conglomerate? I don't know whether I do.
No.
It's a really interesting thought. Obviously, to be decided, it's a good problem or decision to have to make.
Oh, of course. Absolutely.
But yeah, no, I've never worked in massive companies. I've always generally worked in smaller companies. The massive ones, yeah, it's
I,
interesting. All about culture.
I have, and I worked in banking as a sector, and literally it was during the kind of financial crisis, and we used to have meetings about meetings about meetings, and literally that it was at that point I was really beginning to plot. I've got to do something for myself here, because I can't live like this.
Yeah.
But yeah, different cultures. Cool. So in terms of you've got the training business, you've got the property company, you've also just launched something else. Tell us more.
Yeah, so this is partly why I'm having those thoughts about, when you grow a business, what kind of size would you be part of it? Is because we've just launched a brand new business, which came out of lockdown. It was about March, April time last year. Got a phone call from a guy called Van, who runs a tech company called Coho, which is a property management tool and system.
Okay.
And he was looking for help with and feedback for his system that he just launched, and he was in beta format at the moment at the time. And I yeah, just got chatting to him. We got on really well. Had similar visions about the industry, especially around shared living and co-living, and we just continued chatting. And then over the course of about 3 or 4 months, we were all talking to the same people, having similar conversations, and one of our visions was to start managing our own portfolio, so that every single tenant who comes into our business gets the same unique experience, a positive one. And
Good. Important to include that word.
yeah, a positive one from the first encounter with us to when they leave as well. So it's a positive experience all the way
Yeah.
through. So they will go and recommend us to others. So that's something that's always been in our mind. And within that group of people that were chatting, we had another developer, a letting agent or operator who's been looking to expand his business, and these tech guys who wants to get into the market. And we just started thinking, well, there's a huge need here, because the general quality of the management of shared living is pretty poor. The quality of shared living in the UK and HMOs is pretty poor. What you see on Facebook and Instagram is not the reality out there in the real world. When you look at the majority of HMOs, you see some beautiful looking properties, but they're still in the minority. So the country needs a shake up, and tenants need a better choice. And there's no one really out there managing HMOs to a standard where you could really call it co-living, so that every time someone moves in, they get an experience of living in a community where they can create meaningful relationships, friendships. If you just imagine, some of you will have been to university. When you go to university, you get thrown into the deep end with student hall of residence, then you go into a shared house, and you make those friendships, which are quite often lifelong friendships. And if you imagine that, for someone who's maybe not gone to university, they can have that same experience by going and moving into a shared house if it's managed in the correctly. And anyone in their 20s, 30s, actually in any stage of life, can have that experience if they're moving into a property where people with like-minded outlooks, with similar similar backgrounds and similar life stages can can form those meaningful connections. So um, we decided that we were going to set up a nationwide co-living management solution,
Okay.
which is a tall order.
Yeah, I was going to say that's a big task.
Which is a big task. So we thought, this is what we want to do. How are we going to do it? So we started operating in the areas that we already exist, so London, Midlands, and the South Coast, and then think, right, let's get that working well, and then we'll expand into some other areas. So we're already operating in those three major areas, and then we're already in talks to grow into two more areas by the second half of this year. So we will be nationwide, if not already, well, if not very soon. And our three, I suppose, things that we're focusing on is making sure that the property maintenance is taken care of just by default.
Yeah.
So that's not the only, that's not the one thing that letting agents do. That's what they seem to do. They look after the property, whereas that is going to be as a default. We have a proactive property maintenance. Every house gets a health check so that it's at the best quality it can be at all times of the year. Then our second pillar of what we're basing our service on is making sure communication is like 5-star, that reporting is easy to follow, that everyone is informed about what's going on at all times, so that no one feels in the dark anytime. Because as a landlord with a letting agent, I often feel like I'm in the dark about what's going on. Sometimes I want to be in the dark, but other times I find out about things too late to be able to influence the outcome.
Yeah.
And the third thing, which is our most important thing, which is actually the customer experience. So tenants, when they move into houses, having an amazing time from that first moment they encounter our business all the way through moving in. And then so we do events within the property, welcome dinners. We facilitate people to have events themselves, so that we encourage them to put on stuff. We encourage them to engage with local community, so we have an outreach program, and so that it's more than just a room. That's
Okay.
essentially what we're building.
Interesting. So, wow, that's a lot to digest, and again, that's a big change from. I guess you've got knowledge of the kind of the pain points of that process with your experience. So how are you going to create this national coverage?
So we work with people, local people on the ground. So we
Right.
already have a network of maintenance people, people that can assist us with viewings in the areas that we operate and the
Right.
ones that we are about to expand into.
Right. Okay.
So we are doing some partnerships and employing others directly, and making sure we work with the right people who, again, share our mission, vision, and values of what maintaining a property should be like
Mm.
for the occupants and for the owner, what communication should look like. It should be a positive experience to communicate. Whereas, I get the impression a lot of letting agents, they see a tenant as a liability, so as an asset, until the moment they move into the property when they become a liability. So
Mm.
they can make the money till they move in, then they just expect that money to keep coming in, and then whenever you get a phone call from a tenant, it's a problem.
Yeah.
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 So
Okay.
we want that whole experience to be a positive one, so
Yeah.
that the tenants know that the property's looked after, that,
Yeah.
that their issues are going to be resolved.
Yeah. Okay. And obviously that will then improve in client and tenant and landlord relationships being improved, and therefore tenants sticking around for longer and less voids and all of that good stuff.
Yeah. So the output is tenants paying more rent
Yeah.
and staying longer, which
Yeah.
and properties lasting longer, retaining value. So
Mm.
businesses on the whole being better off, more profitable.
Okay. Yeah, interesting. Interesting. So exciting times.
Very much so.
And how are you? How the hell are you going to manage that along with everything else you've got going on?
Well, the positive thing is there's a team of 9 of us already in that business.
Okay.
So I'm only 1/9 of it.
Yeah.
Um, we all are very key and very important to the success of that business. But it means it could be, all of the founders and the the uh, the team at the moment have got other jobs, they've got
Right.
other businesses. So this was the side project, and it still is the probably the part-time bit. But if you have 9 people working part-time, you've got a decent core team for
Yeah.
a startup business. And this is not the people doing the work on the ground either.
Sure.
Yeah, so we have those people on top that would be contractors and suppliers to the
Mm.
business. Um, but essentially, we've all taken a role. My role within that is business development and marketing. So just it's working to ensure that the message that goes out to the the potential tenant pool is that we are the best place to live. Our
Yeah.
goal is that when people of a certain well, when they think about shared living, they say, right, they don't think I'm going to go rent a room. They say I'm going to go rent a co-home, because
Yeah.
that's the name of our brand. It's Co-Home.
Yeah.
So, and then my goal is also to attract properties and the right landlords that we can work with, and right developers, because if developers develop lots of really great properties and just are not interested in the management, then that type of relationship is great, because we can have an input in how properties are created. If they're more experienced developers, we can then help with interior design, etc. If they're beginning developers, they'll probably be working with us on the HMO platform anyway.
Yeah. Okay. No, interesting. Because one of the things I was going to mention is obviously the kind of social engagement that you particularly through Scott Baker, that your Instagram account, Scott Baker,
Yep.
the quality of the content that it's definitely improving over time, but it's to a really, really good standard, isn't it? You've kind of got that nailed down now. And some of the kind of thought leadership pieces that you put out there, some of the surveys that you've done and stuff like that, it kind of, it's attracted you quite a lot of press, hasn't it? So it's a good strategy. So how did you come up with that stuff?
Which bit?
Um, well, I guess the thought leadership side, because that's always.
So I have never been one for like writing articles and putting my thoughts down on paper, but it's something that I knew that I had to do if I was to start talking about it and sharing the message of what we do. So I started writing articles on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
I've done there's a few on there now, not as regularly as I would like. I got into a rhythm, and then I had a baby, and then that threw all rhythm out the window. So now trying to find another rhythm, and you get into another rhythm, and then you just turn 6 months, so you think you're in a rhythm, and then you're not. So anyone who has kids will understand that one. Um, but yeah, so I started writing articles on LinkedIn, which got me the bug. And then I started writing a book.
Right.
And from that, I started to really condense my thoughts, order them, because you have to, and you have to
Yeah.
yeah,
You
have a good
have to
structure. So you
plan these things. Yeah.
have to plan these things out. And so I thought, well, actually, I'm going to take some of the ideas that I'm writing about, and I'm going to do some short form, and I'm going to expand on some of them. And again, LinkedIn. And the HMO magazine, I regularly write in there. And some of the things we've done have attracted YPN. So we've been in there 3 times now. The most recent one was our shared living survey, which is one of the ideas or brainchilds of mine, which is to survey as many tenants as we can who live in shared houses, so that we can get a sense of what they actually want and what's working and what's not. So we do that annually. And the
I
next
guess
one's
I
coming
guess
up
that
very shortly.
feeds in quite nicely with the what's the platform called, the co living
Co-home.
co home. Sorry, excuse
Yeah,
me. Yeah.
that's right. Yeah, so it does, because as a developer, it helps us to know what to put in a property as we're developing it and how to lay it out.
Yeah.
And then as a managing agent, know how know what their pains are when they live in shared houses, so that we can decrease those and solve those problems. If we can solve those problems for housemates living in those properties, then again, you're going to get greater retention, greater rents, greater profitability.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the question around the kind of socials. So how have you gone about improve? Because initially,
Social media.
yeah. So on Instagram, the Scott Baker stuff, it's good. It's good stuff. You put out good content. So how did you learn to do that, and what has been the kind of learning process you've been through on that side of things?
The learning was to delegate.
Good response. Yeah.
Yeah, so I wish I could take credit for the amazing quality of content that goes out on Scott Baker socials. We have meetings to determine the direction that we're going, and we provide the content. So everything that goes out is basically stuff which has been taken from articles I've written, ideas, discussions we have in meetings, and then we have an amazing girl who's a core part of our team, Sala, who is also our interior designer.
Right.
So she basically is full time with us now and does all of our interior design, works with our clients at the HMO platform, and then also runs Scott Baker Properties social media
Right.
to showcase what it is. So she knows the ins of our business and has been doing it for almost 2 years now. So she knows exactly who Niall and I are, so can talk in the way that we would want to be represented,
Yeah.
and we can put that imagery out there that we want to be in a way we want to be represented. And because she's a designer, she got the eye for putting out the right
Yeah.
pictures and the right quality. So um, uh, as someone who is not a massive fan of social media, well, I know I'd say to you what I do like social media, but I just don't like doing it every day.
Yeah.
So if you send me a message on Instagram, it's possible that I won't see it for 3 days.
Yeah.
It's not that I've ignored it; it's the fact that I've not actually looked to look for it. Um, and my fiance, helps me with my own social media. So I will do some posts, and she will do some posts, just to ensure there's regularity of content.
Mm.
So I think the best way to do social media well is to have support, unless you really love doing it. 'Cause I know some people are just on it all the time themselves.
Mm.
But you've heard all of the different roles that I play within 3 different businesses.
Well,
Um,
there's only so many hours in a day, right?
yeah, exactly. So we have 3 people running 3 different. I have 4 people running 4 different social media accounts in the businesses. In fact, 5. Yeah, 5 people running 5 different social media accounts within the businesses.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay. And in terms of your kind of looking forwards, then obviously we touched on your lofty targets for the number of rooms that you'll have under your control,
yeah.
and obviously I'm assuming the HMO platform, it continues to be a kind of core part of your proposition.
Yep.
How do you go about growing these things, and do you use a mentor? What's the kind of, how do you keep yourself pushing forwards and having a bigger vision?
Uh, you pretty much hit the nail on the head there. Having a mentor is the number one thing, the
Mm.
number one reason for my success,
Right.
for everything that we've done to this point. It's been so when I started in property, it was doing a training course, which gave me accountability. It gave me a reason to do it, and the education that I needed. And then I had a mentor that gave me some dates to work towards, and then I achieved my goals based upon that. So having that external input, and
So
then
that's quite a structured approach, isn't it, in terms of how you got the kind of wheels turning, if you like? Yeah.
and there's so as I said in my book, I talk about the kind of the journey of how I forgot what I call it now. I should know because I've just read it last night. The final proof. Um, 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 but that's
Ghostwriter? No, no.
no, that was about 2 o'clock in the morning though. So and that's why I can't remember. So if there's spelling mistakes in it, that's why. Um, but yeah, I talk about the keys to continued growth. That's it. So
Right.
and the 4 elements that everyone has when they're learning. So from having education to being motivated to creating momentum to getting experience, and then learning again to getting motivated to getting momentum to getting experience, and it's a constant cycle.
Mm. Yeah.
Um, and if you don't, and at the heart of that in the middle is support. So if you don't have support, then you can just fall off that wagon.
Mm.
And for me, whenever there's a lull in my energy or in the business, because like everything, it ebbs and flows. And what gets me back on track is by having some external motivation
Yeah.
that then just pulls me back into, yes, these are my goals, this is my why, etc., etc., etc.
Yeah.
And that external motivation might be spending an hour playing with Amelia, my daughter, or it might be having a half day session with one of my coaches in a group mastermind session, but where they're just talking about ideas about a business or about property or development. So um, I've had a mentor. I've still got one right now. I've got a business mentor who is just helping us to formulate plans about how we're putting our business together, how to get to growth. And it's very possible that it's probable I'll be working with this group for next year or two, and then especially as we grow the the letting side of the business, the management co-home, that has the potential to be international. So again, we're going to need people that have done that before, because the last thing I want to do is go and trial and error it, in Canada or Germany, and just make a massive hash of it, because that could affect everything else. So I want
Yeah.
to reach out and speak to the people that have that experience.
Yeah. Find the experts.
Yeah, leverage experts, and there's obviously going to be a cost to that, but there's also an opportunity cost if you don't take action. Also, the opportunity cost of not doing it by not taking action, but also the value of the mistakes that you're going to miss by doing it that way, and the profit that you can achieve, but you might miss by not having someone speak to you. So I'm a big believer in kind of working out kind of return on investment when it comes to coaching and mentoring. You're always going to think, well, if I'm going to pay X amount for some support, some mentoring, a mastermind, a year-long program, what is the potential upside to that? So if you spend 10 grand for a year, what am I going to get that back and then some? If the answer is no, then I'd say, well, actually, it's like, for example, going to university. I went to university. I would say people should go to university if they choose to, but not just for the hell of it. 10 grand a year on university, for 3 years, is that a good return on investment? I don't really know. So whereas getting someone who's really active in business, not someone who's not doing it anymore. I see coaches out there who did it 30 years ago who are not doing it anymore,
Yeah.
and still think and don't know what it's like on the ground right now. So I'd say to anyone who's listening who's looking for a coach in whatever field they're in, go and find someone you admire who's not 10 steps ahead of you. They're maybe 3 or 4 steps ahead of you, so they know exactly what it is, what it feels like to be where you are, that they have got the experience and the success to be able to take to basically bring you along their journey. That's how we view working with our clients. We're about 3 steps ahead of the guys behind us, and we're just pulling them with us. And
Yeah.
when we're doing larger projects, we're making learnings on it. We're sharing it with the people that we work with, so that
Yeah.
they don't make any of the mistakes that we do, or so that so it inspires them to continue to look for projects, to do deals.
When it's that accountability thing, isn't it? Because I've personally started. Yeah, I'm a member of a business incubator at Hertfordshire University for one of my companies, and
Awesome.
I use that as a I basically call it my therapy session, where I can sit there and talk to people that it's kind of a Chatham House rules. We talk about our respective companies, and yeah, it's kind of really useful just to get other people's thoughts and input on things. And then actually, that's then led to some really good strategic partnerships. But also, I found somebody who's mentoring me as well, and that's kind of it just gives you a sense of accountability, doesn't it? Because it means that you've got to I set the time that I'm going to be with him, and by that time I've got to have done what I've said I'm going to do, because otherwise I feel like I'm not performing for him. So it creates that kind of sense of priority for these things. So
it's like when you're back at school having your deadline for your homework. It doesn't matter whether you do it a little bit every day for a week or whether you do it the night before.
but it
You'll
needs
get
to
it
be
done.
done.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
and I'm the one that always did it the night before. So having these sessions, with accountability groups, means that I get it done, even if it is the night before. For example, when I send my book off, I did the final edit the night before, finishing at 2 o'clock in the morning, because if I didn't, it was gonna I'd miss my slot with the editor, and I'd have to wait another 2 weeks, whatever it was. So
Yeah.
I was like, I'm getting it done.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Cool. So we've talked about lots of stuff. The one side of things we haven't talked about is kind of health and fitness. Now, I know you used to do T25 every day. Was that what you were doing? Is that still ongoing, or are you're not doing that anymore?
I did. So one of my goals in life is to be fit and healthy, so that I can run around after my kids
Yeah,
and play in the garden, lift them up, and all the things that they want to do, and have the energy to be a father. So when we got pregnant, um, over a year ago now, we that was high on my agenda, was to start it, and I was struggling to get the motivation to do it, because obviously as the guy in the side of getting pregnant, you don't really feel any difference apart from the having to live with a pregnant fiance. And so wash my words now.
Exactly, yeah.
So
Laura will be listening.
so it's like shh. Uh, I was struggling with motivation. Then lockdown hit, and then I was thinking, oh, I got what's going on. You mentioned earlier about drinking. We definitely got into our wine for a good 2 or 3 weeks,
Me too.
and yeah, for a period, and then I started to feel not so good. I was like, oh, this is
Mm,
I really like enjoying a bottle of wine, but when you have a bottle of wine or a glass of wine every day, it's not quite the same.
mm.
So I then thought, right, okay, I'm not gonna do that anymore. I can see that I'm about 6 months away or 5 months away from having Amelia. So I'm going to start working out. I want to come out of this because I'm starting to get a bit of weight as well. So I'm going to kind of come out of lockdown fatter, not fitter. Sorry, fitter, not fatter.
Yeah, yeah.
That was it, the right way around. And so that was
Baby brain, baby brain.
exactly baby brain. So I hashtagged fitter, not fatter, and I put on Instagram that I'm going to post my workout every single day, doing the T25 program, which is a program where you do 25 minutes of exercise 5 days a week with a Saturday off, and then you do like a stretching routine on a Sunday. I thought I can cope with that. It's only half an hour out of my morning every morning. So I did it religiously, and I did not miss a day for about 3.5 months. And then Amelia was born. I can safely say I haven't done it since, and that was 6 months. However, leading up to Christmas, one of our friends, who we met through the NCT group that we were in with the kids, um, runs something called Run Up to Christmas. Run things, and they have um, a thing called Run Up to Christmas, like a campaign where it's a charity event where you raise money for charity, but you set a goal. So Laura and I said, well, we need to get fit and get back into exercise. So we set a target of running 50k between us in 25 days,
Right.
and we thought, well, that's easy. You do a couple of kilometers every other day each. So we did that, but we missed a few days, and they got up to like the Christmas Eve, and we were like, oh, we've still got 12k to do. So on Christmas Eve, we both ran 6k. Basically, went around the park a lot to get to our goal, and we did it. And the night before, but we did it, and then we got our medals.
There's a
Um,
recurring
uh,
theme here of these last minute efforts to
but we
get
get
things
it.
across the line. But
But
you
we
get them across the line.
but we
That's
get them across the line.
yeah.
That's the important thing. We get them across the line when there's a deadline. So that got us going, and realised that I hadn't lost as much fitness as I thought. But yeah. So at the moment, we are scheduling back in. Again, trying to get into a routine with Amelia and finding the time to get fitness in. And I know when someone says I don't have the time, generally that is a excuse for it's not being important enough up their list of priorities.
Yeah.
And to be honest, health and fitness is important to me, but it's not as high as some of the other business things that I'm doing. But I
Yeah.
also know that if I do the health and fitness, it does benefit
Well, that's
the
what I was
business
going to
stuff.
say. Yeah, because you find that you're able to work better and you're more
Yeah,
focused and so because that's what I always find if I stop exercising for whatever reason a couple of weeks later I've got to start again because otherwise I just feel like
yeah.
I'm particularly at the moment when you're locked inside it's kind of crawling the walls, whereas that's a good release, isn't it, to get expel some of that excess energy.
Yeah, so I do enjoy it, but I suppose it was never drilled into me as a kid to exercise because I was always in doing music, so it was
Mm,
never a habit. So whenever I do it, it's for a period of time, and then I fall off the habit, and then I come back to it. So
mm.
I kind of go as I you can see, I went every day without fail for 3 months, and then something changed, and and then my focus changed, and I went hell for leather into being a father, and
Yeah.
making sure the
Well,
business
look, that
survived
you
through COVID.
yeah. I mean, I don't have any children, but I gather that the first 6 months are pretty hellish, and you're looking remarkably good for it. So clearly you're getting some sleep. So
Well, yeah. So Laura and I are we come up with ways of sharing childcare at home,
yeah,
and which and Laura works in the business as well. So we we're again trying to run three businesses between two of us and have childcare, and do childcare and be successful. So it's just juggling. Um,
Mm.
we've just we've got a wedding coming up, um, and that's another goal to work towards.
Yeah.
But I also know with health and fitness, you can't do it overnight.
No.
So to be fitter, to make sure that you're in the right shape, and it is and kind of every day, every other day activity. So it is now back on my radar that I'm going to be doing that. So I've now got into the habit of waking up. I've been pushing myself a half an hour earlier every morning. So I've never really been a morning person. And with Amelia, she wakes up when she wakes up, and um, yeah, so I'm forced to wake up at least 7, and I've been pushing it back 6:30,
Mm.
and to 6 to make sure that I'm up. I'm definitely not part of the 5 a.m. club, um, unless Amelia's screaming, and then that's generally Lara who's part of that club. But she's no longer well, soon it's not to be breastfeeding, so I've got
Yeah.
fewer excuses not to get involved in that.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Oh, cool. Good. Well, I think from my end, I'm just looking at my little list that I put together. We asked you. Oh, yeah. In terms of things that inspire you, is there any what inspires you, and any tips or tricks to help people that are struggling during these times?
Okay, so there are two main ways to help myself to be inspired. Actually three. One of them is to surround myself with people who are on a similar mission to myself.
Yeah.
So that's why I love to have meetings throughout the entire week with amazing people. So whether they're part of the co-home team, that's an amazing bunch of inspirational people because we've all come together from different necks of the woods and different walks of life. Whether it's our own team, and I can just hear what everyone else is up to in our business, and I can see the amazing things they're getting up to. That's inspiring for me. So
Mm.
on a Monday morning, if I'm tired and I'm going into the meeting, I come out of that meeting really invigorated on our
Mm.
briefing. So like, actually, yeah, you know, they've because as the leader, you go in, you have to display the way. So you go in and portray a happy. You've got to be inspiring yourself. So that's my aim. But realistically, I can go in looking inspiring, but actually I could be feeling like crap. But by the end of the meeting, I come out feeling inspired because of the people around me.
Yeah.
So that's really important. And then obviously having my coach and mentor, going to sessions with him is really inspiring.
Mm.
So the second thing is about having a vision. So over Christmas, Nara and I spent a good couple of days putting together our 5-year vision plan.
Yeah.
I got a big piece of paper with loads of cutting and sticking out on the wall. So whenever I have any doubt about what we're doing, just go look at that and go, right, this is why we're doing it.
Mm.
And you just go through it and do the different elements of or areas of life and go, right, I'd forgotten about that. Yeah, I need to focus on that. I need to go back and work on playing with the band and writing that song, which I put off for a couple of months. Or if I want to achieve that goal, and it just reminds you why you're doing what you're doing. And the third thing is music. So
Yeah.
music has a massive impact on changing your state. Um, some people will put music on to compound their state, whereby if you're feeling like crap, you put on music which is going to make you feel worse. Um, don't do that. Put on some music which is going to make you jump, make you put a smile on your face. So,
Mm.
what I think I'd say is, think about the last time that you were really happy. What music was on in the background? Was it a gig? Was it a special occasion? Was it I try to think, were you out and about and you heard a song in particular? Is there a particular song that sticks in your mind, which is associated with happy thoughts, happy feelings? So
Mm.
just stick that on, and you'll be amazed at how quickly your state will change, and the chemicals in your body will change, and you'll just feel better
Mm.
and be able to move things on. So, and I forget that sometimes, and then I put on some music which I absolutely love, and then I just get on with it, and I forget that I ever had an issue with the thing that I was working on.
Yeah, yeah. Look, I think we're all in. Yeah, it's difficult times, and maintaining that focus and that motivation is tricky. Dark early as it is at the moment.
Yeah,
We're in January. Weather's pretty terrible. I'm
yeah,
surprised you're not jumping in the sea, because I know you live on the south coast.
yeah.
Not taken that up yet.
No, however, my parents bought myself, my partner, my sister, and her partner, wetsuits
Right.
for Christmas. So Christmas Day was trying on wetsuits in our small family bubble in our tier 2 house. Yeah, we tried on wetsuits, and so one of our goals is to do a lot more paddleboarding,
Right. Okay.
because there's quite a lot of paddleboarding off the coast here, off our Pebble Beach.
Yeah.
So we all bought each other vouchers for lessons, unbeknownst to each other.
The last time I did paddleboarding, it was very very entertaining. I mean, the water was a bit warmer. It was in Mauritius, but my wife was amused. I fell in lots.
well, well, that's going to be me. The thing is, I'm probably a fair weather paddleboarder, as in prefer to do it on the med.
Yeah,
It's
much
probably
nicer.
in the med.
Yeah.
Yeah, with our wetsuits and the coastline here is it's actually quite flat, the water. So if the sun has been shining, I don't think it's that cold. And with a wetsuit on, I think it's actually going to be fine.
You won't be saying that. You won't be saying that when you fall in.
I'm yet to discover that. I think you've got to jump in to get warm. I think that's the downside to wetsuit. But seaside life.
Yeah.
I'm not a natural swimmer in the sea, but I do like being on the seaside.
Yeah, cool. Well, Mr. Matt Baker, it's been a pleasure having you on. I think that's all my list of questions that I'd like to ask, and yeah, I think hopefully you provided some inspiration for people that are looking to get going, expand their proposition. Just in summary, if you've got any closing remarks or any of your socials where we find you, etc., please feel free to drop them in now.
Yeah, so what I would say is a quote that I found myself writing in my book, which is out in February 2021. Look out for it. It's called Next Level Landlord. One of my quotes, one of the things I said is that the most important step along the road to success is the first one. So I know this podcast is going out to people at different stages of their business lives, but whatever stage you're at, the next step is the most important one. Yeah. So just focus on the next one, not the one 10 steps away. So it's that the first step, and then the next step is the most important. And then finally, to connect with me, I am on all social medias at Clearly Matt Baker. You can find me across everything apart from Clubhouse, because I don't have an iPhone.
Honestly, we'll talk about that offline, but don't waste your time.
Thanks for listening to The Growth Show with Matt Lindsay. Please like our podcast and subscribe today.